Hi, it's Polly with Get Busy Thriving, and in this video, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, and it's been showing up in my coaching a lot more lately. So I was like, okay, now I need to I need to share about this, and this is my 2 cents and my philosophy, if you will, and I invite you to join me in a new perspective, a new paradigm, possibly, and how it shows up and how it manifests in my the work I do with my clients is I'll often hear them say, well, I just need to lose a little bit of weight, or I want to drop some pounds, or I want a dress size, or clothing size, or my thighs this, my arms that, what have you. So the manifestation shows up here, and what I find is what's beneath it, and one of the things, and it could be a lot of different things. There's a whole series I could do on self-image and self-love, but I want to share in this video about rules-based living versus values-based living, right? Values-based living so much more fulfilling. Rules-based living so strict and unfulfilling, right? And I find that where this comes from, and I'm going to share an exercise with you that I learned at Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. Wonderful, wonderful workshop. I invite you to go. Is that when we live our life with unexamined values, kind of like they're driving us, deep down behind us, behind in our subconscious mind, and we don't really examine them. We don't know what's most important. Our life is sort of like this patchwork quilt. Like we pick up values and we think things are more important, and we kind of have this patchwork quilt of values that we've never examined. We don't know exactly what they are. And so we run around our life like driven by sometimes rules, these standards of, I have to be this way, or these things have to happen in order for some happiness or what have you. And so I've got some notes here I want to share you, but I think the distinctions between rules-based and values-based living, and I'm going to invite you to do this exercise at the end, to look at your values and know them and then own them, and then begin to live from them. Because when you live a values-based life, you live a life of fulfillment. You've done the inner work to understand what's most important to you. I would say, the people who are begging in hospital beds all over the world, who are begging for another year of life, they're not begging for more life so that they could, lose weight or fit into a certain piece of clothing or six-pack abs or something. I highly doubt it, right? What they're looking for are those experiences, those things that are most valuable, the connections with people, the expression of who they came here to be. Maybe it's to, perform something, perform their best work of something, or to give back to people, or just to connect and thank, and maybe it's adventure, something. So whatever their value, like what their soul's most self-expression could be, that gives you an insight into their values. And so I think if you begin to examine and understand your own values, and in this example that I'll give you of how you can understand your own values, I have seen for my own self and in doing work with other people, when your values, when you totally know your values, and if you even reorder your values, so you have your values, and it's not just like, oh, like I know what they are generally, but you know what they are specifically, and then you know what they are in order, and you live your life with values and an order of priority. It's fascinating to see. Like I took what had been driving my life for a long time was the value of growth. And so I was living my life pursuing growth and personal development and all this stuff, and education and all this stuff. And really, was that the most fulfilling? And I would say our values can evolve and can change at different phases of our life. My values as a teenager, I think, are going to be very different as they show up when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old. So I'm not saying that they can't evolve, but not looking at them. And then the order of priority, it's fascinating when you prioritize them and you go, whoa, this is the most important thing to me. And you begin living from that. Like that's the most important thing to you. Your day is going to change. The people you hang out with will change. The activities you pursue, the experiences that you seek, the hobbies that you do. Oh, it's so great. So let's just look at a little bit between values driven life and a rules-based life. So values-based life is really driven by that internal introspection, that like what's not the purpose of my life, but what am I here to express? What am I here to bring to the world, if you will, right? Like what's most important to me to be? Like, how do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to be remembered? You know, do I want to walk in the room and people remember me for my, you know, my professionalism, or is it my friendliness and my warmth? Or is it, do you want to be remembered and people know you as a lover and a contributor, or as someone who is very creative and expressive, you know, or adventurous, what have you? So looking at those and understanding what your values are, beautiful way to achieve that deeper sense of fulfillment, not like checking off goals, you know, like rules-based living. I have some notes. It can be very, you know, it's unfulfilling, you know, because, you know, if we have rules, they're just, it's like a way, I would say, of providing order. You know, it's controlling ourselves and controlling or attempting to control ourselves in life circumstances, and being able to put things into a box, yourself into a box, like these rules and what have you. And I find it just leads to, you know, striving, unfulfillment, self-sabotage and self-criticism, self-doubt. Well, I can't meet these standards that I have, and what have you. So rules-based living dictates specific behavior. I must be like this, these things must happen, this or, you know, nothing else, kind of thing. It creates structure and predictability, which gives us certainty, which fills a need. But I would say there's lots of ways that manifest structure and predictability in values-based living as well. So values-based living is, I would say, it's, like I said, it's the purpose-driven. It's our best self-expression. It's the intentions of your highest self, if you will. So with that said, I wanted to, you know, so values, just as an idea. So I would say when I did this work, there's a great website, Steve Pavlina, longtime great website in personal development. He had this long, great list of possible values. And basically it's a long list of adjectives, you know, like words that describe ways of being, you know, joyful, playful, adventurous, happy, loving, structured, contributing, you know, whatever they are. And you know, looking at those and understanding yours. So what I want to invite you to do in this exercise, and I'll share with you right now, here is, I created this years ago, and so what I have here are what's called my towards values. These are my away values, right? And so on my towards values, my number one value here is health and vitality. And when you do this, so what I would encourage you to do is create two sides of a piece of paper, or you can, you know, start it on a piece of paper and then you can transfer it something like this, because eventually I wanted you to have this somewhere in your house, in your room. I have this in my bedroom so I can look at it. And what you want to do is your towards values. So towards in a way. So towards values is who you most want to be, like what you're going towards, what you're here to act out, to bring to the world, to most experience in life and be an expression of, right? Your way values are the things that you don't wish to express. You know, they're, let's say it's your weaknesses, if you want to call it that, but it's the values that you don't wish to do more of. So for example, health and vitality is my number one toward value. Love being my second, contribution, contributing being my third, fun and playful my fourth. My away values, as an example, and I'll explain these a little more in detail, but away values for me, one is consistent, deliberate, or inappropriate anger, consistent doubt, consistent criticism. So let me explain to you how you can create one of these for yourself. So for value, so like I said, Steve Pavlina has this great website, and you can go to anywhere to find a list of adjectives, right? Like I said, playful, joyful, loving, what have you. And looking at those, what you're wanting to do is pull out a list of 10, right? So you want to ask yourself, so I would, you know, sit quietly when you have some time, give yourself maybe an hour or two for this process. To really do that deep work, that inner introspection, and get to know yourself and go, wow, if I'm leaving this planet in a year, what is this year going to be about? Or in my next 20 years, what do I most want to express in the world? And then it's looking at that list. So I think, you know, I've seen a list of adjectives, and it can have like 100 things on it. And you start by pulling them over, and maybe you do it in a Word document, or you can do it on a sheet of paper. And the goal is to get it down to 10, right? So looking at them, maybe pulling a whole bunch over, maybe you get down to 20, and then you get down to 15, and then you want to start with 10, okay? So once you have your list of 10, what you want to do is you want to rank them. And so this goes back, if you've ever done this process where, like, let's say you have a list of 10, and you start with the first one, and then you compare the first one and the second one. And you say, okay, which one's most important? If I could only be one of these, for example, which one would I most want to be? Which one's most important to me? And you go 1 or 2, and you go, number 1. Okay, so number 2, you set it aside. So number 1 stays on the top. And then number 3, you compare number 1 and number 3. Number 1 and number 3, which one's most important? Which one's most important? Number 1 is still most important. Okay, great. 1 and 4. Looking at number 1, number 4. Which one's most important? Oh, 4 is more important. Okay, so 4 now becomes number 1. So number 4 starts being compared to number 2, which is most important. Okay, and then you just work that through, and what you'll end up at the end is a list prioritized 1 through 10, and you can go back, massage it however you want. Like, which one's most important? Is this one most important, right? And then you get your list of values that's most important to you, your top 10 list of values. And I hope you choose those top 3 really with some thought and some heart space of, what do I most want to express in the world? What's most important for me to express and experience in the world, right? To be and to contribute to the world. So once you have those top ones, the way that you fill this out, okay, so how you get these other things here is, rules-based living is structure. It's like this, all this has to happen in order for me to feel, let's say, vitality, right? People create these massive lists of, even they don't even realize it, like, gotta go to the gym and I've got to eat this and whatever, in order for them to live, and it's confining, and it creates just, I would say, lack of fulfillment. It's like the striving, but it never feels fulfilling. So you change it, and how you change it is you say, so you'll take health and vitality, or whatever your number 1 value is, and then you say, how do I experience that in the world, or how do I enjoy that, or how do I bring that into the world? And so you say, you finish the sentence, anytime I ... Okay, so number 1, vitality. I experience vitality anytime I whatever. So for me, it's treat my body or spirit with love and care. Anytime I exercise. Anytime I eat organic food. Anytime I rest. Anytime I eat fruits or veggies, drink water. Your list can, so you're trying to make it really easy. Anytime I do any of these, I feel like I'm living a vital life. I'm being vitality in my life, right? This next one, love, right? So anytime I am kind to someone, I notice how I feel about animals. I feel love for animals. Anytime I remember I have love inside and I am love, etc., etc., etc. So you do this for each one. So again, it's your towards values, the values you want most to be and to experience in life. You say, anytime I ... and then you'll have your value, and then you'll have like the expressions of it, so how it shows up, and have lots of them, because you want to have lots of success with this. You want to feel you're living your values, right? For your away values, for example, you want to make those hard. You want to make those hard to compound, if you will. So when I said earlier, I said my number 1, so one of my top away values is consistent, debilitating, or inappropriate anger. So it's consistent anger. It's not that I don't get angry, but it's the consistent, debilitating, inappropriate anger. It's like anger for like, no, like that was inappropriate, right? So the way you word this one is, only if I were to consistently ... and then you fill it in, right? So for me, anger, so only if I were to consistently react in a moment with harsh words instead of remembering I alone have the power to decide what things mean, right? Only if I were to consistently have doubt. And for example, mine says, not believe in any possibility, instead of choosing to focus on my resourcefulness, the power of the universe, or taking small steps along my path. So there's a lot of possibility there. So For me to feel these away values, like I have to do it consistently. It has to be a lot. It has to be like lacking possibility. So what I want you to do is go through and make your top 10 list of values, order them in priority, and then come up with a few values that you would rather not be an expression of or be known for in the world. Maybe right now anger is running your life, or fear, or doubt, or criticism, self-criticism, or criticizing others. So look at those, and then remember, it's the consistent application of that. So it's not that you can't once in a while, oh, that person, whatever, critique or feel doubtful or fearful, but it's the consistent expression of it. Okay, we want to be going away from those. So you're leaning towards your away values and away from the others. So once you've made your list, then I want you to, so in order to live values-based living, right, and have it really show up in your life, you need to make it a practice and rituals, right? And I don't mean this practice for, like, what I'm going to share with you isn't, okay, you're going to do this every day for the rest of your life. Because it becomes like a habit, it becomes a part of who you are, and it becomes a part of how you live your life, and the decisions and choices that you make will come from that. But in the beginning, you've probably not sat down and done this either in a while or ever. And so it's like living with the consciousness, the intention of being a values-based living person, right? So we're putting aside rules-based living, living for some, outward societal driven or scientific driven, like the weight on a scale, or society says you need to have abs like this, or shoulders like this, or legs like this, or what have you, right? Instead, you say vitality, or whatever your top expressions are, right? So for me, it's like vitality is how I choose to live. Do I monitor my weight? Do I look at my jean size? No, I go, do I feel alive each day? Do I feel like I have the energy to pursue the things that I want to do? Am I expressing vitality in my relationships? Am I showing up as everything I want to be? And you can look at this in a lot of different values, but growth could be, am I pursuing things that are taking me in the direction I want to go? If growth was one of your top values, am I practicing and learning and trying new things, like growing myself, growing my comfort zone? Am I trying things that I've never tried before, for example? So that's how it looks. So once you have your top 10, then to ritualize it, to introduce it to your integrate it into your body and start living from it, it's a practice. It's creating it as a ritual. So I would encourage you, once you have it, put it somewhere you can see it each day. Maybe it's on your phone, it's on your computer, you can have an app, whatever, poster board like I have. It doesn't have to be fancy, just do it. So once a day, look at your values and just go through the list. Just start to understand your prioritization of your values, especially those top 3, right? Like living by those top 3 values and remembering lower values, when you look at, for example, your to-do list or the things you're up to or your schedule, right? The things that you need to do this week or today, ask yourself as you review your values, am I experiencing them? Am I expressing them? Am I embodying them? Am I doing things that lead me towards these values? If a top 1 for you is contributing, and you notice either you're not interacting with other people, you don't feel like you're contributing to other people's lives or contributing to a greater cause, or just a contribution in life, like you're not making a difference in the world. If that's a value for you, I would encourage you to examine your activities and say, okay, if I were living this, what would I be doing? What would that start to look like? Even small things, right? So sitting in reflection of your values, at least in the morning, and then looking at your day and saying, is there something that I could do that could help me fulfill my value of living my value? And to tell you honestly, it can be small things like living a value of love. As I said, it's anytime I say kind words, I appreciate my cats, I say loving things to people, I return a phone call and say thank you, or what have you. So it doesn't have to be monumental. You don't have to go join a huge movement or start a philanthropy or anything like that. To live your value, how can you start small? How can you start with one thing today or this week, and then begin each day with your daily routine of looking at those, and then at night acknowledge yourself for living those values. Just reflect on, okay, these were my values. How did I express them, experience them, embody them? today and reward yourself for that. I just think that living a life of values-based living is going to give you so much more of that juice, that marrow of life, that fulfillment that you're looking for, that you said when you define your values, you're here to bring to the world or to experience. So I hope this has been helpful to you. Please put aside, if at all you're measuring yourself by your weight, or like you've got rules about how the world is or how you need to be, sit back and try this exercise and see what it's like to experience living in a different way, living with your values, based. Your life is based on those values, those set of values. And yes, you can have a mission statement and things that you're up to and all sorts of other things on top of it. But you might be surprised if you really get to know your values and what's driving you, and you become the guide of that, not just, like I said, that patchwork quilt, and you're kind of maybe being driven by values that are no longer suited for you. I think this could be great for you. So share comments. I would love to hear what you think of this, and please give it a try, and I welcome your feedback.